Alright guys, so I finally got my 300 WSM barrel in, and I will be swapping this out pretty soon. But getting a new barrel in initially allows you to do something you normally wouldn't be able to do. So, at least not having the barrel in the firearm or in the rifle. I also bought 200 brand new pieces of Lapua 300 WSM brass. And so initially, what I did was I took a few of these and I just set them in the chamber, to where they not like forcefully, but they're just touching the shoulder and everything the way they would be in the rifle. And I took some measurements off of that. So from the base or the head of the case down to the barrel tin in there, and took an average of a few measurements, which surprisingly there was really no average because they were all exactly the same. They were all exactly 0.137 inches. And so from there, what I did was I started a bullet into a case, and I would set it down in here, and then I would see how far up above where it needs to be, where that bullet is actually touching the throat area or starting to touch the rifling. And then I just incrementally seated the bullet a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper until it no longer was sticking. So I can like drop this in here and it doesn't stick. And so the bullet is right at touching the rifling. So now I know exactly what length to set my bullets at when I start testing. Once I finally get this barrel spun into the action and everything and set correctly, I will know exactly what length to start testing this particular bullet, which is the 198 grain Warner Tool Company Flatline. Now, I haven't settled on a powder for this yet. I guess I've got a few options, but it's like I've got limited options. And with a case like this, even though it's a short action Magnum casing, it still is going to run somewhere around, depending on the powder you're using, anywhere between like 60 and 70 plus grains of powder. So you're going to get anywhere from like 100 rounds to maybe 120-ish rounds out of a pound of powder. So it consumes a lot of powder. And then another thing too is, as far as load development goes, I've been listening to Winning in the Wind, Keith over there, and then I've also been listening to Primal Rights as well. And both of those guys kind of say the same thing. When you've got a brand new barrel, you don't want to actually start load development until it's got at least 200 rounds on it. And the reason why is because new barrels will speed up over that first 200 rounds. So if you start load development with 0 rounds on the barrel and you get your speed and everything where you want it, and then all of a sudden it starts getting faster and faster, and it takes you out of your tune or your node or whatever you're in, and then also starts building more and more pressure, then all of a sudden now you've got to change your load, right? You've got to start backing things off. And so they recommend for the first couple hundred rounds of just being normal rounds and just shoot the gun, kind of have fun with it. Don't put a lot of effort into trying to make super ultra consistent or super ultra precise ammunition in that first couple hundred rounds, because the barrel is going to start changing. It's going to change a lot in the first 200 rounds, and then once it gets past that point, it's going to reach some level of equilibrium where it's going to continue to change throughout its life, but the amount of change is a lot smaller. You may periodically, every few hundred rounds or so, have to adjust your load just a little bit, but it's not going to be a dramatic amount. And I think that's kind of the point they were getting at. Now, so as far as like starting powder and bullets, I think I've got like 1 pound of some, I think 78-28. And then I've got some hunting bullets that I just were given to me. They're 30 cal. I've got some like 180, 220 grain stuff, and I think that's probably what I'm gonna start with, just to break the barrel in, and then just to shoot it, just to get a couple hundred rounds on it. And plus, another thing too with brand new brass is you really don't want to start load development with it until it's actually fire formed the first time to the chamber of the rifle. Now, I do full length resize, and I will full length resize all of this brass, but you don't want to really start doing load development until after the first fire forming, once it's actually formed in the chamber. So I have 200 pieces of brass there, and to actually just shoot and get fire formed, which is going to put me into that area of having at least 200 rounds on the barrel, which will get me past the point of where the barrel is speeding up and changing drastically over the first couple hundred rounds. And then I also have just a few boxes of random 300 WSM hunting ammunition that was given to me, and I'm probably going to shoot that through it as well, probably during the period of the break-in, which this barrel that I bought is from a company called Excalibur, and they do have list a break-in procedure on their website, and they kind of detail how they want you to do it. And then if you don't do it the way they like it done, then I don't know, somehow or another they won't warranty the barrel or something. But for me, if you're buying any sort of custom barrel from any sort of reputable custom barrel maker, most barrels don't need broken in, because they get hand lapped, and the hand lapping procedure really takes care of what breaking in a barrel would do to it. So I'm not sure. I think they just say that just to cover their own butts. It's like, hey, you need to follow this break-in procedure with your new barrel, and if you don't, and something's wrong with it, then that's on you. And from a business standpoint, I can totally see that, and that's why they would do that. But anyway, if on the other hand, it's like you happen to just send out a bad barrel, and a customer gets it and puts it on their rifle, and then they have a problem with it. It's kind of like, man, you should take care of your customers, in my opinion, if you're doing something like that, especially if they're spending the kind of money that we spend on these barrels. Because right now I'm stuck in the world of buying pre-fit barrels for my rifles. I don't have a lathe, I don't have a way of chambering them, and as far as the area I live in, there are no real good, like, reputable gunsmiths here that and most of them I don't think have the capability of even chambering barrels. So there might be one, but it's like a few hours away. So, which in the grand scheme of things is, making a road trip on a weekend or something to drop a barrel off and then pick it up the next weekend is probably not that big of a deal. But for me, I kind of enjoy the process and the experience of actually putting my own barrel on my own rifle. And and eventually I would like to get to a point to where I start chambering my own barrels, so I can just buy the blanks and do the chambering and contouring and all that stuff myself. But that's going to be a long way down the road. That kind of work and those kinds of machines that are capable of doing it to a high degree of precision are extremely expensive. So for now, I'm buying pre-fit barrels, so they are, they're contoured, they're chambered, they put the muzzle threads on, they thread the tenon for you and everything, and then they pre-fit it and make sure it's going to work right in the action that you're using it in, and then they send it to you. And so they're putting a lot of work into a barrel. So like this barrel here was about $700, after the shipping and everything. I think it was $711. Versus if you were just into buying blanks, you could probably get 2 rifle blanks for that price. So there's kind of a trade-off, and also since you're doing a pre-fit barrel, you know, they're making them as good as they can. The problem is they don't have your exact action to mate it to, right? So they're mating it to another action, like in my case, a Savage 110 action. So they're mating it up to a Savage 110 action, and they are, setting the headspace and checking everything, make sure that the barrel is good, and then that's the best they can do. And now when it comes to me, I'm gonna put it in my Savage 110 action, which it's the same action, but they vary. There are very small variances in one action to another. They're not all exactly the same, like perfect copies. So uh, when you're adding that to it, I mean, this barrel is going to fit my rifle just a little bit different, a very small amount different than the rifle or action that they pre-fit it in. So that's just what I have to say about that. Now, another thing too is I've kind of changed over and got a couple different things. Got one of these guys, and it probably doesn't really matter what brand you use, but they're all kind of in the same price range anyway. But this is a expander mandrel die, right? So I started doing research on neck tension and stuff like that and how to set it effectively. And well, apparently, I've been doing things wrong for years, and there's a lot of people out there that have known how to do the correct thing for a long time, and they use expander mandrels. Now, this is the Cortina Precision one, and I think whether it's his or you buy somebody else's or a bigger company's, that's been around longer, like they all do the same thing. They all are for the same purpose, and that's how you can precisely control how much neck tension there is. And so anyway, I just bought the Cortina one. Now this one is designed after, I don't know, he added a little bit of extra design to it in that when you run the mandrel over the die or over the brass and everything, the body of this actually squeezes the brass just slightly, just a hair, and supposedly reducing the diameter of the body of the brass just a little bit. And according to him, that's going to help eliminate the clicker situation if you're at the gun range and maybe your ammo's a little hot and you go to lift the bolt and it just stops at the top and you have to cam it over, and it makes that clicking sound to be able to pull the brass out because the brass is stuck in the chamber, and that's supposed to help eliminate that. Now, if you're loading your ammo correctly, which I'm guilty of running hot ammo, I'm guilty of pushing the crap out of it and getting the most speed I can possibly get out of it, which is not necessarily a good thing. In some instances with some certain bullets and certain powders and stuff and certain brass, I've gotten good results doing that. And which all, if you're gaining 100 feet per second over like a regular load of ammo, that's perfectly fine. At really, really long distance, I mean, really, really long range, like I've been shooting, it might get me another 100 yards or something like that. It's nothing like super significant, but if I'm shooting, say, 1,800 yards and I push it a little hotter and it might get me to 1,900 yards, I've done that, and it's probably not the best way to do things because sometimes it shoots well, and then like if the temperature changes on the ammunition while you're out there shooting it and you're already on that edge of like too much pressure, and then it pushes it over the limit, now the ammunition doesn't shoot worth a crap and it starts shooting pretty erratically. And actually saw some signs of that this past weekend. We were out shooting, and anyway, I'm gonna start doing things a little different. I'm gonna start loading where the ammunition's happy at. Another little piece of equipment that I got into using is one of these Forster. Let's see if I can get this out of here real quick. So I don't have a coax press or an inline seating press or anything like that. So when it comes to seating your bullets, obviously the best thing you can do would be to have like an arbor press and an inline seating die. And I guess the ultimate way of seating bullets would be with the amp press that actually, measures the seating force for each round going into the case. And so you can cull rounds that aren't in the middle, or outliers and stuff. But this is a Forster Ultra micrometer seating die. Now, the unique thing about these is that they basically have a chamber in the die. So this part here mimics the chamber of your rifle. So it keeps the casing like perfectly square and straight in there. And it's even got like a shoulder area just like the chamber in your rifle. And so when you seat the bullet in one of these, and plus it has a bullet guide inside there that the bullet goes up in that keeps the bullet perfectly straight up and down. And so it's keeping the case and the bullet perfectly straight up and down and perfectly in line of each other, or as perfect as it can be in this type of die. And so that just ensures that your bullet is going to be perfectly centered and square and straight in there. And, it's going to eliminate the run out, so the wobble on the bullet if you have a way of checking your run out. And if you don't have the money or the space to have an amp press, or at minimum like just a normal tabletop arbor press, then this would be your next best option. So if you got the money and you got the space, get an amp press. At least from what I've seen, that's the best way to go. If you don't, then an arbor press with some inline seating dies from like L.E. Wilson or something are going to be really good. But if you don't have the space for that, or the money for that kind of setup, then this Forster Ultra bullet seating die may be what you need. But these are caliber specific, so you have to you're not going to get one of these and then be able to use it for multiple rounds. Like, this one is only going to fit and work for my 300 WSM, and then like if I wanted to buy one for 308, I'm going to have to have one for 308 and so on. So yeah, just a couple new tools there and a couple new things I'm going to be working on. And then also another thing is I've been again watching and listening to Winning in the Wind on YouTube, and he recommended using these Redding competition shell holders because they come in different incremental heights, and so you can really precisely control your shoulder setback on your brass when you resize it. So when you run it through a full length sizer and you're trying to set the shoulder, 2/1000ths back in your chamber, these are how you can do that in a very precise way. And see, I've never been, I've not ever reloaded that way before, and so it makes sense that sometimes I load ammunition and it shoots like tiny little bug holes and it's just perfect. And I think that somehow or another, in a combination of things I was doing in my processes, I just got everything right, or most things right. But then other times I'll reload and try to do the same processes again, and the ammunition just doesn't shoot as good. Now it's shooting half-inch groups or even 1-inch groups, and I'm sitting here scratching my head like, these were just shooting so good like a couple months ago, and I just did the same process of reloading them, and now they don't shoot. And I think it's because of inconsistently setting up my dies, an inconsistent shoulder setback, inconsistent bullet seating, at least not getting the bullets in straight, and and that sort of thing. So maybe with a few extra little tools at my disposal, I can do things a little more properly and get a better result. Like, I'm not sure I can get better, as in just the super smallest, best precision possible, but if I can make the precision that I am getting more consistent to where every time I load the ammunition, I get the same performance out of it, that's going to be the game changer for me. I think that's going to be the most important thing, is getting ammunition that, like, if I load it today or if I load it 6 months from now, it's going to shoot the same. Um, you know, and that's what I want to be able to do. And so, if I load up a bunch of ammo now and then I go shoot a bunch of it, over the next few weeks or so, and then need to load it back up, the next time I load it, I want it to perform exactly the same as it did the previous time, or at least really close to it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And then I'm kind of been doing some research on getting loads started and developed and properly actually tuning a load. And so I'm pretty excited about it. I've been doing things the wrong way for a long time. And, like I said, in some cases it works out really well, and then in most or other cases, doesn't work out so good. I have guns that shoot, but not, that's what they do. They just shoot. And then I've been able to make some of them shoot really amazing at times, but it's not consistently all the time. And what I want to be able to do is figure out and really dial in my process to where they are super consistent all the time and shoot really good all the time. With that being said, I'll let y'all to it. Drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think.